Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Comic Tropes Art live stream. Very happy to have all of you here, whether you're watching live or maybe once it's archived. Very grateful. So I'm doing the Inktober challenge, which is basically a personal challenge just to work on improving. And today's prompt was wild. Made me think of one of my favorite werewolf movies, Dog Soldiers. Dog Soldiers is definitely my favorite werewolf movie, so drawing a scene from that. And let's see, we've got folks filtering into the chat room already. That's awesome. So hello to Sigamigs, hello Brendan, hello to Gene, and to Michael Garcia. Lovely to have everybody here. Obviously, I've had an opportunity to sort of not just sketch, but lightbox this, so we're pretty good to move forward. Not a huge sketch today, I don't think, but I think it's going to help me focus on a few techniques of how I like to feather and block out blacks. That's sort of my goal right now. Let's see, a few more people jumping in. Hello, Luke. Hello, Atomicus. Hello, Gigi. Hello, Trenton. Hello, Philip. And hello, Franco. That's awesome. And let's see, Trenton says, been binging my videos for a while. Well, thanks for jumping into a live stream. Hello, Mandela Butterfly. It's really lovely to see so many familiar names. I know a bunch of you were watching my live streams last year, maybe even the year before. So that's really awesome. I really appreciate it. So feel free to drop in with any sort of questions about things like comic books, YouTube, my show in specific, anything, and we'll try to get some conversations going, right? Let's see, drawing a roos today? Roos. Rodent of unusual size. Sort of, Sheldon. It's a werewolf. It's a werewolf from my favorite werewolf movie, Dog Soldiers. I think that they had the best overall design. And it was a cool premise, pitting actual military soldiers that were just on sort of a weekend drill up against werewolves. It's a great movie. Let's see, Atomicus drew a dead dinosaur. Very cool. El Gargoyle said, I liked Hellboy 2019. Okay, fair. Yeah. This face is going to be up against all black, so I'm just sort of getting the outline of it, and then I'll take it from there. It'll be a little easier to draw the werewolf, I think. Human faces, you got to get right, or they just look weird. Clay picked up X-Men #1. Cool. Oh yeah, I'll have to go to the comic book shop tomorrow. I didn't take time to do that today. TARDIS Rider says, I'm proud to have been watching for the past 2 Inktober's. Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. It's been really fun seeing some familiar and friendly voices pop up in the live stream chat. It's really nice. It's flattering too. Obviously, I can't be too boring. My favorite werewolf movie is American Werewolf in London. Yeah, a lot of people say that, and I definitely agree that the special effects are good. I think that there's some good comedy and a few good jump scares, but it's not my favorite because I feel like the protagonist is completely passive. He just sort of has a bunch of stuff happen to him, and then eventually the movie ends. So for werewolf movies, I like Dog Soldiers, The First Howling, maybe Ginger Snaps. I don't dislike American Werewolf in London. I don't dislike it. It's just not my personal favorite. I still like it okay. Let's see. I have read Jonathan Hickman's House of X Powers of 10. I loved it. I'm drawing Dog Soldiers, Clay. Hello, James. Hello. Let's see. Luke says, how many Brazilian fans do you have? I don't have any real way of knowing. But I do get a lot of nice, friendly comments from people from South America. So I know I've got at least a few, but I don't know how many. You've been following my live streams for about 41 years. That's how old you are, right? Just water today. Yeah, that sounds like a fun collection, Franco. I think Frank Miller did a lot of really amazing things, so that would be a good collection. You know what's an underrated one that he did? Ronin. Definitely like Ronin. Kind of a cyberpunk type of story before cyberpunk was really much of a thing. Do you drink coffee or energy drinks? I definitely don't. I've intentionally cut out all caffeine from my diet just because I was overdoing it. It was too much. So I know you can have like, you know, non-sugar energy drinks like Bang, or you could have like coffee without like, you know, milk and sugar, but for me, like, the temptation would be there to slip into having sort of, you know, Starbucks heavily doctored like super sugary coffees, or even worse, Mountain Dew. That was my big addiction for a long time, and I've relatively recently gotten off it. So no caffeine for me. Wish I could. I lust for it. Hello, Pete. Hello, Tari. Hello, Carabear. This prompt keeps making me think of Mr. Freeze from the 60s Batman TV show. That was his catchphrase. Yeah, he would just go like, wild! Jack Nicholson's Wolf. No, I don't really care for that one too much. I don't remember it being that good. That's the one with, like, James Spader in it, right? I don't know. Maybe it's better than I remember, but I don't remember it being that great. I feel like, honestly, there is totally room for a great werewolf movie that just has not been made yet. I actually wrote a werewolf comic. It's never been like, I've never hired an artist to illustrate it, but I would love to someday potentially publish that. That would be fun. I wrote, because I just feel like the werewolf is a really interesting creature, and that it hasn't been tremendously well represented. There's not a lot of great werewolf movies. No, I've never really considered doing a game stream. I think it would be a blast, but I don't know, like, if my audience would really necessarily care if I was playing video games, and I don't know. I'd have to think about it. I'm sure it'd be fun. I've got a friend that's going to be doing that, like, 24-hour gaming thing where you can, like, you know, donate to them for charity. It's kind of like donating to somebody doing a run. So he does that every year. And I think that's pretty cool. I think that's something I would consider doing sometime. Let's say Dog Soldiers was great. Yep, I love it. Better than De Niro's Frankenstein, Wolf was. Yeah, I guess I'd agree with that. But then at the same time, like, you got, like, Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula, and that was honestly, like, really, really good in my opinion. And like, Wolf and Frankenstein just didn't compare. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein with Kenneth Branagh, right? As Dr. Frankenstein. Definitely could be remade and looked, you know, could be cool, but it's going to be hard to beat, like, both the classic Universal and the 70s stuff by Hammer. Those, like, really, like, exploitative, like, bloody horror movies from England throughout the 70s. Oh man, I love the horror films, mostly because they almost always have Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing, and yeah, those are great. They're sort of so trashy and stuff, but, like, still well done, and they've got excellent actors. So I like those movies. I don't know how many of you out there read it. The Mignola adaptation of Dracula. You know what? I don't think I did read that one. I guess that'll be on my my list though, as I do always appreciate Mike Mignola's artwork. Always. I really love his work. Definitely one of my personal favorite artists. Hello, Iron Shell. Hello, J-Muse. Hello, who else? Let's see. Have you heard the legend of the Beast of Bray Road, which is supposedly people are seeing a werewolf? No. Legend of the Beast of Bray Road. No, that's new to me. I'll have to try to remember that. I do love horror. I think I love horror because I was just like, my mom really made me think that it was going to be like just so terrible, and when I finally got old enough to start seeing horror movies, I was like, wait, these aren't anywhere nearly as bad as like basically what she conjured in my imagination. Chris, they show people with their heads cut off. Is that what you want to see? Is that what you want to see? Hello, Seahots. Welcome back. Let's see. Junji Ito's Frankenstein. I have. That's a great adaptation. It's not like modernized or anything. He just flat out does an adaptation of Mary Shelley's amazing novel. Totally worth a read. Totally worth a read. Plus, that book comes with a bunch more of his short stories, which are always pretty darn entertaining. I sincerely think that Junji Ito is probably the best horror illustrator, at least right now. There's definitely guys back in the days of EC Comics that were way up there in terms of being able to produce like some amazing artwork that was awesome and gruesome. But Junji Ito is the guy to beat these days. Scary Stories are the best. Yep. What was your first horror movie? Well, probably like Jaws. I mean, I saw that, I think, on like something like on TV or on like home video or something. So I saw that like, you know, when I was still pretty young. And that definitely freaked me out, but it's like, it's also just like a well done movie that isn't like too gory throughout. Don't know why my mom let me watch that one, now that I think of it in retrospect, because I don't remember exactly when I saw it. But anyway, yeah, so I liked Jaws quite a bit, and that was probably the first horror movie I ever saw. I can remember like the first one I saw in the theater. It was like Alien 3. I was so scared to go see it, and then I was like, oh, this isn't bad at all. Hello, Noah, and I agree, James. Uzumaki is a freaky story. Citizen 4. I don't think I've seen that one, Franco. Have I seen all 3 Tetsuo films? No, just Tetsuo the Iron Man. I haven't seen, what was it, like Tetsuo the Bullet Man was, I think, the 3rd one. I don't remember the 2nd one, but I know about them, but I haven't seen the others. What's the drawing, and have any guilty pleasure? The drawing is a werewolf, specifically from the movies, the movie Dog Soldiers. So I'm going to just sort of keep brushing away here. He's got lots of fur, so it's important to sort of leave some space in between the strokes and give it that like textured feeling, you know? Let's say, Rowan, welcome. Big love for you. Don't read many comics these days, but always keep up with your videos. Well, I appreciate that. Hello, Louie. James asks, the Brothers Hildebrand did an illustrated version of Dracula that was pretty good. Oh, okay. Yeah, I like some of their painted work. I didn't see that one, though. Were you depressed at the end of Alien 3? Well, unfortunately, that was the first Alien movie I saw, so I didn't really know to be that depressed. I was just like, it was a gloomy movie, but I wasn't exactly depressed at the time. But it fascinated me, so I instantly saw the first Alien, and I was like, oh, this is really good. And then I saw Aliens, and I was like, I think I might like this a little better even. And that feels like a little guilty, but yeah, I think I did. Would you consider reviewing the manga Full Metal Alchemist? I'd consider reviewing pretty much any comic. I don't have any current plans to do that one, but I'm definitely not against it for any reason. I don't really know it. I know it was made into a very popular anime, but I don't know what it's about. I haven't read it or seen it, so sort of a blind spot right now. It's never really come up. Citizen 4 is a movie about Snowden's whistleblowing. Oh, okay. Yeah, it's interesting. Have I read any of the Jeepers Creepers comics? No. Are those based on those movies? Like, I legit don't want to support those movies since they're made by, like, you know, a child molester. I don't really want to see support that. The first Alien movie is fantastic, Care Bear, so you saw the right one. But the second one's pretty fantastic, too. The rest are all skippable. All. Anything else in the Alien universe, whether it's 3, 4, the crossovers with Predator, or even like the sort of movies that are still set in that world by the original director, Ridley Scott, like, in my opinion, they're all skippable. But it depends on how much you sort of love that world. I'll tell you that the comics there's a lot of good Alien comics, and of course Alien Predator in comics was definitely fun. It didn't feel nearly as exploitative or anything. Let's see, Prometheus, sure. Best and worst experience at a live performance. Oh, that's a cool idea. You know, one of the most fun live performances I saw was I went to see Pearl Jam in, I don't know, maybe like 94, 95 maybe? 95. And they were good, but you know what was really good was the Ramones were opening for them. And I was like, I really liked that. I don't know, I had a blast seeing the Ramones. So it just, for whatever reason, has remained memorable. I like the Ramones, and I didn't really realize how much I liked the Ramones until I saw them live, and I was like, these guys are great. They're fun and cool. I don't know about a worst. I don't feel like I've really had anything like worst stand out, like, you know, as... No, I can't really think of a bad experience where, like, you know, my evening was ruined or it was, like, way less than my expectations. But I don't go to see that many live performances either, so I kind of choose, and, you know, I'm already sort of a fan of, like, either the band or the stand-up comedian or whatever it is. I don't feel like I've ever really gone to a show that I was, like, let down by. Alien vs. Predator 1 has nice cinematography. Yeah, I'd give it that. Yeah, the reboot or whatever of the Predator recently was pretty bad. Yeah, I've seen Superman vs. Aliens. I even reviewed Batman and Superman vs. Alien and Predator. That was not so good. Hello, Dillard. Welcome. Would I talk about One Punch Man? I would definitely consider talking about One Punch Man. Definitely interesting how it, you know, sort of went from a web comic to an ongoing, like, you know, sort of professional manga to a hit anime. That would be an interesting journey to track. see. Hialeah just shouts out Zombie, as in maybe that genie that was on the Pee Wee Herman show? I like how they had to redo the art for One Punch Man. Yeah, it is interesting. One Punch Man's pretty funny. Definitely, I don't know how many more stories they can tell with that premise, but it's basically a parody of all sorts of manga and anime tropes. So, of course, that's more or less right up my alley, like looking at storytelling devices and going somewhere with them. Oh, Zombie is a Tool song. Gotcha, yeah. Thoughts on the X-Men now that House of X and Powers of 10 have ended? Can't wait for Dawn of X. I think it's a great reset to give us something new with the X-Men. I love how sort of hopeful it is, even though they don't really have a good reason to be hopeful. I like that. That while it can appear Sisyphean or existentialist to have hope when you're like faced with being told that there's no hope, it's also kind of heroic and to just say, like, so what? We've been told that things are terrible, but we just aren't going to accept that. We're going to still try to make the best world possible. I really like that, and I like that Professor X is doing it alongside Magneto. That they're united. I don't know. It feels nice. No, I don't know Megas XLR. Sorry, don't know that one. Excuse me. I don't think Dog Soldiers did have a sequel. I wish it did, but I don't think so. Didn't really need one, of course. I would consider talking about Neal Adams' Skate Man. I feel like it would be kind of funny, but I would definitely consider that. There were some weird things that came through his, what would you call it, like his imprint continuity comics. I mean, I've already talked about like his weird Batman Odyssey book, and I've talked about like his work on Mr. T. And the thing is, he's really talented, don't get me wrong. It's just that Neal Adams has also done some pretty weird stuff, which is kind of extra funny since he's so talented. He chooses some strange projects sometimes, or at least he has some strange storytelling instincts. I have not read Berserk. Everyone definitely recommends it to me, so I'll read it at some point. No, I don't know anything about Megas XLR. Don't know anything about that. Yeah, Mr. T and the T-Force was pretty hilarious. Like he grabs like a baby out of a dumpster and yells at like this kid on the street, like, that's a crack baby, fool. And then this kid that's a criminal, like Mr. T, is like, I'm gonna force you to take care of this kid. It's now your responsibility. I'm like, whoa, Mr. T, I don't think that's the right person to choose for this job. Let's see. The album of the year will be released the 25th of October. Swans Leaving Meaning. I don't know what that is. Hello, Volunteer. I don't think I said hello to you. Welcome. Last Night on Earth. Which one is that? Whoa. Let me pause everything. Super chat here. Dillard, thank you. Would you consider doing a show on my friend's indie comic? It's not good, and unfortunately, because of how he was born, it never really will be, but he's a great guy. I'll say never say never, but it wouldn't be my first instinct to review a comic the way you're describing, because when I review things, My overall point is to analyze what can be done well and what is a mistake, but picking apart like somebody that's like, you know, kind of a professional is totally different than like, you know, hurting an amateur's feelings. And I wouldn't want to do that. Like, I don't think that there's a lot of good to be gained from that, you know. People ask me to review their comics every single day, and I can't honor every request. So I pretty much honor none of the requests, because you'd never get you'd never get an episode based on, like, you know, a character that you know, or something like Bone or Sam Keith or Berserk. You'd never get those episodes if I reviewed everybody's indie comic. So I don't know what I'd really even do to benefit him. I mean, obviously he'd get some publicity out of it, but if it's bad, like you sort of say, then I don't think that like he would really benefit from me like criticizing it. You know, maybe one-on-one, but not publicly. I don't think. That's my thought. I did hear about Bone being made into a cartoon. I posted that on the Comic Tropes Twitter today. Apparently, Jeff Smith and Netflix reached a deal, and it will be a animated show on Netflix, which I think is honestly pretty fantastic outlet for it. Bone it would have been hard to tell in a series of movies. It's very episodic, even though it's got like an overall big epic story to it. It was built as a comic, so it's episodic. So TV is a good sort of option for it, and then you need somebody with that'll have a, you know, good budget behind it, and I think that makes sense with Netflix. They definitely have pretty deep pockets for what they decide to produce. So I'm hopeful. I'm very hopeful. Obviously, you know, Jeff Smith controls his property very tightly, so if he's confident in it, that's definitely a good sign. He didn't need to do this. Thank you. RWW says, much respect for the commitment of doing these live streams. Thank you. It's not easy, so thank you very much. Yeah, I have Instagram. I don't use it a lot, but I have been posting like my daily sketches to it. Otherwise, I tend to forget Instagram. I'm just not very good at figuring out exactly what Instagram is for on a personal level. I can totally understand on a company's level, or if you're a model or something, but, you know, I'm just a guy that makes YouTube videos. They don't make it easy to like just like throw in links and stuff like that. I never read any Bone stories. I'm a noob. Dillard, like, I really recommend Bone. I think it's a great comic. You drew some X-rated comics. Would I put them on my show? Probably not. Not against something that's necessarily X-rated. You know, I mean, I like horror, for instance. I like some pretty intense stuff. But, you know, again, like, people ask me all the time to review their comics or to plug their products, and I just could never do it for everybody. So, you know, I just can't produce a show that people will watch if I'm pausing to review something that, like, you know, a listener or a viewer, I should say, wants me to review. I just don't have time to do that. Thanks, Genius. We need an X-Men TV show. It doesn't work as a movie franchise. Well, it's hard to say. The thing is, X-Men is pretty could benefit from like the big budget that movies have, but their stories tend to be a little more soap opera or a little more epic. So it's kind of tricky to figure out like exactly where X-Men would work best. I have not checked out the new X-Men today, Jeremy. I haven't had time to run by the comic store yet. Definitely would love to. I think tomorrow I should have some time to go to the comic shop and see what's new. So I'm finding out that these brush pens on average are lasting me more like 10 pages. Probably not quite 20. Maybe close to 20, but like not 100% quality. I added another sort of chore for myself this month. Of course, I've got a job and I've got comic tropes, and then I've added this daily live stream for the month of October. Well, I also committed to illustrating a short story for a friend whose Kickstarter got successfully funded. So I owe him that like pretty soon. Pretty soon. Do you remember when DC Comics had horror line of comics like House of Mystery or The Witching Hour? I absolutely do. Yeah, not necessarily the scariest in terms of like, you know, what they did with the art, but they definitely had a lot of fun and told some fun stories. Yeah, I in general like those stories. Alright, time to actually like focus on this dog's, well, werewolf's face and try to give it some dog-like features. Try to get the fur right. Comic tropes trumps all other commitments. Yeah, it does. Well, no, actually, I can't quite say that. My full-time job would have to come first just so that I can survive. But comic tropes would come before, like, this or anything else. Like, you know, that's why I don't always get to the comic book store or get to see movies or watch much TV. It's because, you know, it takes a lot of time to make a weekly episode. A couple nights ago, I asked what channels people were watching, and while I still stand by like not wanting to watch other comic book related channels so that I don't influence myself, I looked a bunch of them up and was like, oh, most of these are like way more popular than mine, and it was kind of depressing to realize. I was like, oh, I've been doing this for a long time and have not gotten as far as these other people. I don't know, maybe it's the content that I produce that I talk about so much, like, you know, indie or old stuff or whatever. I feel like there definitely is an audience for it, but looking at how many more YouTube channels about comics there were, that like literally it was something I hadn't done until like about 2 nights ago. And I saw them and I was like, wow, they've got a lot of subscribers. So a little bit like you climb this hill every single day trying to grow the channel, like, you know, reach out to more people, and then you just like, oh man, is anybody even watching? Obviously some are. It's tough, man. YouTube is a tough road. 72,000 subscribers, more than most comic reviewers. Yeah, but there were like, I'm bad at remembering names. There were a couple channels like that had definitely started within less than 3 years, because I've been doing this about 3 years, like that like were way bigger than mine. Don't worry, of all the comic channels, yours is the best. Well, that's very kind of you, Atomicus. I appreciate it. Neil Gaiman is in charge of House of Whispers. It's connected to his Sandman world. Ah, I didn't really know about that, actually. That's really cool to hear. Atop the fourth wall, yeah, I'm reading that right, has been around since 2008 and only has a little over 100,000. Oh, I guess I didn't know that. Yeah, so I don't know, actually, like, what it takes necessarily for, like, the channel to be a big hit, but I also know this. I'm doing the show that interests me. So even if, like, I could get, you know, more subscribers if, you know, for instance, I only talked about Batman comics, something along those lines, I couldn't do it because I'd get bored. So it's just sort of like heartbreaking going like, oh, you know, maybe my show only has a sort of threshold that it won't cross. I don't know. You know, I'm not trying to feel sorry for myself. It was just sort of eye-opening to realize that there are definitely a lot of comic channels out there that are pretty popular. I wish I could basically do this, spend more time on it. I know that I could do a better job with sound, camera, and editing if I had more time, but I have to balance that with the time that I have available to myself. As it is, you know, I probably work at least 50 hours a week, and Comic Tropes probably takes at least 20. I just don't have much time after that. Have you ever played any role-playing games? Oh, I talked about this last night. I've played some D&D over the last couple years. I've discovered that, and I really like it. Would you make a video on Bendis doing Superman? Potentially. I don't know if I'd be able to get to it like in the near future, but potentially. Yeah, we talked last night about Kevin Feige as the chief creative officer. Should be interesting to see what that does. At first, I was like, oh, I don't think he'll have the time to, you know, focus much on everything if he now has to also look over the comics. But the more I read it, the more I realized that the ultimate goal was honestly to align the TV and film areas of Marvel Studios much better, because before, like, Jeff Leb was running the TV stuff, and it all ran up to this guy named Ike Perlmutter, and he, like, just had, like, this weird feud against, like, the movies, so, like, he would, like, make it hard for them to work together, and now it's all united, so we may actually get to see more connections between the TV stuff and the movie stuff moving forward, and I like that. I think that sounds good, and overall, Feige's done, I think, a very good job on, like, the movies. So, if he wants to, you know, he's just sort of lightly overseeing the publishing overall, just to hear about the creative plans. Sure. You know, he's given me no reason to doubt him, basically. He seems like a smart guy that sincerely likes the characters and is pretty well versed in their history as well. I would consider analyzing Morrison's Arkham Asylum, but I've talked about Morrison several times, so it might not be for a little while. But it is a good graphic novel for sure. It's also interesting that, like, you know, Morrison went on, like, you know, basically 2 decades later to write tons of Batman. I haven't looked at Day Tripper. Is that by the Gabriel Moon and his brother, whose name's eluding me? Isn't that? Yeah, Day Tripper. The guys that also were the illustrators on or Fabian Moon and Gabriel Ba. That's who I'm thinking of. Yeah. I would consider doing Day Tripper. I would definitely consider doing Greg Rucka. Yeah, these are definitely people that I like. I don't know what you mean by a different Ghost Rider on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Jack. So far, that's the only one that's been in the current Marvel Universe. Because the Nick Cage movies were not set in, like, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So far, that Robbie Reyes is the only Ghost Rider to actually appear. They canceled his proposed TV show, so not sure where Ghost Rider will be used next. But they also implied not even implied, they literally showed us that there was another Ghost Rider that gave Robbie Reyes his powers. So that leaves the door wide open for either Dan Ketch or Johnny Blaze to be out there. Favorite Marvel movie? I think it's Captain America Winter Soldier. I really like that one. Hello, Roman. Hello, Bob. Remember when they did an anime version of Wolverine and Iron Man? Yeah, I remember those. Austin says, is there any Batman comic that explored why Gotham City Police Department hasn't put the Joker and other insane Batman villains to the electric chair? Yeah, they have. I can't remember the name of the story off the top of my head, but there was, like, you know, a story where the Joker was up for the death penalty, and Batman, like, had to decide, like, he actually knew that this was one crime that the Joker had not committed, I think, and so he was like, but, you know, should he be put to death? And of course it's like, look, realistically, yes, if the Joker had committed as many atrocities as he has, of course he should get the death chair. You sort of have to say, okay, this is a serialized comic. It gets sort of a soft reboot every once in a while. So you have to sort of separate that and just... It's part of the issue with superhero comics in general. You can't go too realistic because... Well, the issue is that they're set in our world. They do fantastic things, but they're set in our grounded world. Superheroes are. If those superheroes successfully changed our world, which of course they would if they existed, then all of a sudden we can't identify with the world that they're in, and they're all sort of like godlike beings, and it just becomes something you can't really relate to. So you sort of have to just sort of accept that basically the superheroes never quite make a difference in the world, you know? It's a little depressing to think of it like that, but it is sort of like the status quo is always reset in superhero comics. Always. They can't affect lasting change. Stuttering. Yeah, okay. Everybody's asking me each night about the Joker movie. Again, like I personally didn't care for it that much. I thought that it was good performance, good cinematography, but that the story was very derivative of crime-type movies like from Scorsese in the 70s is the bottom line. So I didn't really care for it. I thought it was kind of predictable and boring. Treated mental health mental illnesses in a pretty convincing manner, but as a movie, I wasn't very entertained. I was just bored. Austin says, I just asked a question because Red Hood story explored why Batman shouldn't kill, but not the lawmen. What would you think of a Punisher anime series? Maybe. I think Punisher is sort of not the... He's a problematic character these days. You know, he's a serial killer that runs around with guns, and that's like a serious problem. So it's a little depressing. You know, it used to be like more pulp fun, like, you know, in the sort of Rambo, Commando type phase of storytelling throughout the 80s. But now it's sort of like, geez, this guy is killing bad guys, but he's also just like a pretty dangerous murderer. Yeah, I did see that SNL parody. I thought that Crouch was pretty funny. They did a good job on that one, SNL did. The Beard Hunter. Yeah, that's right, the Beard Hunter. That was Doom Patrol, right? Joker's going to be in Mortal Kombat 11? Okay. Yeah, the Punisher had his day in the 80s. I liked him a lot back then, but I'm not too into him these days. You know, like, we've got, like, literal police officers running around wearing Punisher t-shirts and stuff, and that's a little terrifying. Like, the idea of law enforcement identifying with Punisher. I don't want my law enforcement identifying with Punisher. He's not a superhero. Why weren't they doing animated adaptation of comics like they do in Japan with anime? Just a cultural difference. Yeah, my cat's meowing around. I actually took Chibi to the vet today because, you know, we've been doing these live streams and you've been hearing her sort of meow, and I'm like, why is she meowing so much? Well, she's got diabetes, which she's always basically well, not always. She's had diabetes for years. She had essentially recovered from them, and we didn't need to give her insulin shots. But it turns out she's, even on her like diet food and everything, she's become diabetic again. So that's why she's meowing so much. She basically always feels hungry and she needs medicine. So I'm getting some for her. Cops can like The Punisher as a story, but The Punisher is a criminal, and I don't want law enforcement like wearing stuff that indicates that they support criminals. Like, that's not their job. We pay them with our taxes to serve and to protect, not to, like, you know, enforce vigilante justice. There's definitely got to be lines of like what is appropriate work attire. That is completely inappropriate in my opinion. I don't think it's even my opinion. Like, I'd say that has to be a fact. Like, if they want to go to a comic convention in their off hours and they're wearing a Punisher t-shirt, that is one thing. But if you are on duty and you have Punisher stickers on your car, if you have like Punisher t-shirts while you're on duty, which recently several police officers have gotten in trouble for, that's not good. That seems like they're sending a strange message to people. Yeah, exactly. It's okay to like the Punisher's stories, but you should never idolize that guy. Anyway. Weren't you a vigilante yourself? Sort of. Completely legal, but like I was not going around killing people or beating them up and stuff. The police were 100% aware of what I did, and I was more just like going around and helping people like that, like, you know, had fallen down or had gotten in a fight and needed like some you know, emergency assistance. I helped people like find each other when they got lost, things like that, you know, breaking up fights, but not going around like punishing people and beating them up. Yeah, I was a real life superhero for a year. I ultimately decided it was not anything that like made a difference in the world, and I stopped. But yeah, if you've heard of Phoenix Jones, I used to roll with him. There's a documentary on ESPN that I'm in. Yeah, at the time I had been like, you know, I don't know. I was like, it was a different time. I had just moved out here. I didn't really know anybody. I knew Phoenix, and so I just was like looking to hang out with my friends and try to do some good in the world. I'd been like studying Krav Maga for many years. I'd been like working out for 2 hours a day every day. So I was in like really good shape, and it seemed like a good idea at the time, but in retrospect I think it was kind of dumb. I did not know Mantis, but I feel like I've heard that name before, so like I'd have to think about it. It's been a long time since I did that stuff, guys. It's been years. Like, it's been like maybe not quite 5 years, but like more than 4. So it's been a long time. I wore, my costume went through like an evolution. Like I had like at first like a what do you call it, like a hard mask that you wear for like airsoft and stuff. And then I eventually decided that was like, even though it was strapped on really tight, like I felt like I didn't have perfect peripheral vision, so I switched to like more like a luchador mask. That's funny, Eric. In retrospect, it was kind of dumb. How long have I been living in Washington? Let me think for a second. Over 5 years now. Over 5 years. I didn't have a signature move. I didn't. Well, I got in a couple fights. It was more just like breaking fights up and stuff. Or like one time, we saw somebody like hit a car and drive off, and we chased them. Like we got in our car and we chased them down, and we didn't like detain them or anything. That would be, you know, beyond what we can do. But we are allowed to follow them and like report it to the police, which we did. And we get to like their apartment, and they did pull a knife on me. So I was like ready to like, you know, like, but I didn't like stand in their way. I never stood in their way. So they would have had to come at me to stab me, and they never quite did. But they did pull like a knife on me. That was interesting. There were plenty of times we were worried that like, you know, so not worried, just like concerned that like some of the people we were going up at could be armed, and sometimes they were, but I never got shot at. Like I say, kind of dumb. Citizen's arrest? Not so much. Like, citizen's arrest is a very tricky thing to do, especially since I was like wearing a mask. I'd have to usually pull that off. But you could follow and like report, so that like, you know, you've had like complete continuity of like, you know, seeing somebody commit a crime, and like, you know, we would record it as well. Like we always had cameras on us, so we like recorded this stuff so that we could prove things. But wouldn't really detain. No, wouldn't really detain. Is Seattle a safe place? I would think overall that I would say that Seattle is fairly safe. I would say that there are some areas in downtown that at night become unsafe. Some areas basically near some of the clubs that would often have like some drug pushers, for instance, pimps, certain amount of homelessness, like due to mental illness. Although most of the time we tried to help the homeless. We'd do like homeless handouts. We'd just walk around giving out food and water for the night. That was nice. I was never hiding that I've been a real-life superhero. I've talked about this openly for years. It's not exactly something I'm incredibly proud of. I'm not ashamed either, but yeah, I've never really tried to keep it a secret. Yeah, Pike and Pine near 3rd is literally world famous for drug deals. You're exactly right, Joe. That's really interesting. You definitely know what I'm talking. That is one of the areas that we would patrol. Sometimes Capitol Hill, especially like when the bars get let out. Like a lot of people are pretty inebriated at that point, and will often do some pretty dumb stuff, start fights, or, you know, drive drunk. So like that's where we'd be, just to like help people like stop fights, or you know, things along those lines. Give people emergency aid till like an ambulance could get there. Saw like a taxi cab once run over, like literally hit 3 people. It's like half a block from where I was, and I just saw this taxi cab go through a 4-way. There were 3 people, well, like 5 people walking across, but it hit 3 of them. It hit them, and it did stop. But then the guy was like about to leave, and it was just me and one other guy. I was like, you know, you stand behind that car so that he cannot leave. The other people were injured in front, and so like we did sort of detain him in that regard. Like we would not let him leave. J Muse, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, you are a gentleman and a scholar. Keep up the great work. Well, thank you. And so that one, I had to administer, like, you know, some first aid for, like, one person that was hit pretty hard. And, you know, like, of course, we called the police right away and gave our statements, showed our footage, and I later had to testify in court against the guy, like, who was... he was like, oh no, those people all like ran in front of me. I'm like, 3 people did not run in front of you, man. There were like plenty of witnesses besides just me. So like that was a pretty dramatic evening. Actually, that was the same evening that then we later chased down the drunk driver who was like literally carrying away the entire bumper from the car that they hit, like on the back of their car. You're not blocked, Clay. Guardian Angels, of course. Yeah, I remember them. We came across some pretty weird stuff. Like, I remember one time, walked past this, like, you know, we're just patrolling the street, and we walked past this sketchy-looking sort of tweaker, you know, just like a super skinny white guy, just, like, had a real nervous look about him, and he was, like, carrying a bunch of boxes of stuff. I'm like, hey, how's it going? He's like, hey. And, like, later, we're, like, walking. We're, like, going the opposite direction he did, and we eventually come across, like, a car with its window smashed out and like all these like piles of coat hangers outside of it, because like I guess there'd been a box of coat hangers, and then we saw some other similar boxes and we're like, oh, that guy just broke into the car. So we like ran back the other way. We found him and got him like arrested. He was like breaking into cars and just stealing stuff out of them. There was all sorts of random stuff. One time we had a producer from this British guy, Carl Pilkington's show. He did an episode on superheroes, real life superheroes. You can look that up. They decided not to go with us because we kind of took it pretty seriously, and like a lot of us were pretty well trained in martial arts and stuff like that, and they wanted to make it more funny, which that's fair. But like a producer spent the whole night with us. He was pretty scared. So I have these stories, you know, I mean, I have these stories of that time, and basically, though, I came to feel that I wasn't, like, necessarily doing any more good than I would be doing as just, I didn't need to wear the mask. I thought wearing the mask would sort of, like, inspire people to be better in our town. That wasn't quite the case. We did affect some small changes, and I feel like I did some good during that time, but ultimately I didn't feel that it was that productive, so I sort of stepped back from it. I do sort of want to tell that as a comic book story at some point, my superhero year, and just tell my real life true stories, because there will be some action and some weird stuff too. Hero name was Omega. Yeah, they wanted to do a puff piece, and I wasn't surprised by that, but you know, it's okay. I at one point helped Phoenix, some producers from what's that show, Comic Book Men, wanted to get a hold of Phoenix Jones, so I, you know, got the producers in touch with him, and they flew him out, and he was on that show once, and like they all went out like patrolling, and Phoenix legit got mad because they were like treating it kind of like a joke and like hassling some skateboarders and stuff, and he's like, no, we should go to like the more dangerous areas and like fight real crime. And that was not at all what they were interested in doing. Of course, they were just trying to mine some humor from it. You can, if there's an episode I do where I interview Phoenix, an episode of Comic Tropes where I interview him and we talk about some of those stories. It's pretty fun. So I recommend that episode if you've never watched it before. Red Hook Brooklyn? Red Hook Brooklyn has plenty of crime. Feels good to be doing this at an earlier hour. I wish I could do this more often with all of you guys. Obviously, it's mostly built around my work schedule. Not much I can do about that. See you, Graphite Grappler. Thanks for stopping by. Oh, Red Hook, New Jersey. Yeah, there's no... I thought you were talking about... Oh, it's not Red Hook, New Jersey. That's why I'm getting thrown. Red Hook is in Brooklyn. You're thinking of Red Bank. Red Bank, New Jersey, where Comic Book Man is filmed and where Kevin Smith grew up. That's not known for, like, its crime or anything, yeah. Welcome, Brian. I like the earlier streams. Wait, what? What did I do, Gene, that you don't like? You tell me what you want me to talk about, and I'll talk about it. Oh, I know what you like. You like it when I do bad impressions. They look like they're about to high-five each other. Well, give me some time, and maybe that'll start looking a little more realistic. We'll see. Oh, you mean time of night. You like it when it's later? But it's so late for you, like on the East Coast. I feel bad doing streams that late. I feel like most people can't make it. This is the first time you've watched one of these before midnight? I have done some pretty late evenings, I know. When do these usually start? It depends on my work schedule for the day. A lot of days I work until 9 p.m. Pacific time. So that means I'm not really able to start a live stream until something like 10 p.m. Pacific. There are some nights where I work a little earlier, and then there are days that I have off, and that's today. But, yeah. It's all sort of based on what else I have to do that day, and then I just sort of fit it in at the end as soon as I can. Anyone in the live stream? No, I haven't had dinner yet. No. I did not go to art school. I went to college at Tulane, and I got a degree in business. I got my bachelor's in business. The Mr. Tropes Variety Hour has no definite schedule. No, that's true. I don't know what I'm gonna have for dinner tonight, but I might be lucky. I think Chrissy said she might be willing to cook us something, so. Maybe I'll luck out. You know what? I just realized I inked in a piece that I actually meant to have as white space. I'm going to actually do something here that I haven't tried in a while. I'm going to use some of my whiteout and try to correct this. I actually haven't been to Texas. I would love to go to Austin. I have several friends that live in Austin, and I took a couple art classes at Mass Art. Yeah, when I was in high school. That was just like in the summer, and that was fun. But that was like I've never taken like formal I didn't go to college for art or anything. There, that's a pretty nice thick whiteout that kind of redoes a piece. We'll let that dry, and I'll work on a different area until it's dry. But it's worth correcting, I think. I don't love correcting stuff, but I want it to be right. Who's my favorite comic artist of late? That's a cool question. I would say right now, today, Sean Gordon Murphy. It's just who I'm really into. Man, that guy can draw motorcycles and tech and stuff. He draws people like angular, but like with amazing shadows. He draws great backgrounds. Very, very into Sean Gordon Murphy. Hello, Fallout 2 Forever. Let's see. Wanted to tell you I didn't like you at first. Okay, well, thanks for watching. Hello, L.S. Grieger. Nice to have you here. L.S. Grieger's been following the show since early on in that first year that I was doing it, I believe. You majored in cartooning at the School of Visual Arts. That's awesome, Volunterra. What a waste of money? No, I'm sure you learned some stuff. Come here. You want some attention, Chibi? Hold on. Apparently I've got to take a break to pay attention to my cat. So you're going to get to see a cameo, I think. I'm just trying to get her. You want to come over here? Hey. Yeah. That's a good girl. Ugh. This brave little girl went to see the vet today. And it turns out that her blood glucose levels are pretty high, and that's why she's so skinny. So she's going to go back to taking insulin. Isn't that fun, Chibi? So this is Chibi. She's 15 years old. She's super sweet and affectionate to people. And she's a great kitty. But she became diabetic, which is something cats can sometimes just do. She's on the skinnier side, so she was having like a regular diet, but like I guess it just sort of overall had too many carbs. So, you know, over the years she became diabetic. She actually went into like sort of remission from like having like a high blood glucose limit, but it turns out she needs her insulin again. So but I was good to find that out. Like, I was really nervous today, folks. Like, taking her to the vet because she's been meowing a bunch. You've all heard that. I'm worried about her. Turns out, not really that serious. Very high blood glucose, but it can be controlled. Just need to get her her medication. I know you moved into a new place, but why don't you have the hamburger in the background? Maybe I should. Like, I got to figure out, like, a way to hang it there. I've also, you can still see I've got some file boxes from moving in. I haven't really organized everything yet. This isn't the pen I meant to grab. Yeah, Chibi's Japanese for tiny. It's sort of like a cute name for tiny. And when I adopted her, she was a very little thing. She was, you know, got her as a baby. Actually, my sister, who's in here as Oreo and Jeannie, that's my sister. She helped me choose a kitty. She was like, come over to this place. You know, we've got like 2 cats at this animal shelter. They look friendly. And there were 2 kitties. Only one of them really seemed to like me, and that was Chibi. The other one was a little ambivalent, and I was like, if this kitty seems ambivalent, like, I'm sure that he can find a home. He's still a cute kitty. But Chibi came right up to me, wanted to like snuggle, wanted to play. She was only something like 4 or 5 weeks old. So she was really little. Yeah. And then I told my sister, whoa, I want her to have a. Oh, you had 2 hamsters named Chi and B. That's amazing, Sigamix. I was like, I want Chibi to have a friend, and so my sister kept looking at like the nearby shelters and stuff, and she found this guy that I ended up naming Milo, and he was like about 2 months older than her, but like that's not very much, and you know what? They get along so well because I've always just given them both like plenty of attention and stuff, and they snuggle together all the time. They clean each other. They treat each other really, really well, and that makes me feel nice that they get along so well. She's still meowing though. What time is it actually? Oh, it's because it's her dinner time. That's what it is. She needs food in a minute, so in a little bit I'm gonna have to take off and give her some food. I don't know Patrick Shand. No, I don't know that one. I know what you're talking about, Gene, and I'm pretty sure that I remember this correctly, that he was named Curly. I think that, like, because, like, they named cats Mo, Larry, and Curly, and I'm pretty sure Milo was named Curly, and I was like, that just doesn't feel right at all. Do you have only a cat as a pet, or do you have more animals? I have 8 koi fish. That's the other thing I've got. I've got a feed that poor starving cat. All right, tell you what. Talk amongst each other, because like their food bowl is just right over here, down here. So I'm just gonna feed them real quick. You might even hear it. I'll be right back. You can hear me over here just feeding my cats. I'm probably very distant at this point, but I'm still here, everybody. The live stream is still going. Oh, they're hungry. Okay, that was definitely the move. We are hearing some purrs. All right. Yeah, so, will next week's episode rhyme with block and fee? Maybe. Anyone here a fan of Zenescope? What's Zenescope? Are they the people that make, like, t-shirts and stuff like that? Should play rock music like John Campia. I can't. I have no musical aptitude. Now, my fiance Chrissy was in a band when I met her. She has a lot of musical aptitude. She, her primary instrument is the violin. She's amazing. But she also, when she feels like it, will do things like, we've got keyboards and cellos. She can do drums if she wants to. She's very talented musically. I really admire it. I think it's so cool. She was in a rock band when I met her. Zenescope publishes tarot. Oh, okay. I didn't know that. What do I think of John Romita Jr.'s art? I love it most of the time. I only throw that in just because, he's a guy that will always hit his deadlines. And that means that if he has less time than usual, then his work isn't quite as good as sometimes it can be. But when he has time, I mean, if you've seen some of the stuff that he's done over the years on X-Men, Spider-Man, Thor, he's very, very talented. I think he's produced some gorgeous, gorgeous work. And then there have been a few issues of Spider-Man or even Kick-Ass that feel kind of rushed and a lot more cartoony than otherwise. But I think his work is gorgeous. And I would say the stuff I like of his the most was probably a lot of the issues of Spider-Man that he did under J. Michael Straczynski. I think that was my favorite. I don't know if Chrissy likes Mount Erie. Whoa! $65 Canadian. That's almost $2 American. No, I'm just kidding around. Dean, thank you. This looks amazing. Hi, Chris. I got around to Essex County because of Jeff Lemire episode. Wow, talk about hit me in the feels, man. Totally. I'm so glad you discovered it and that you like it. That really is that's lovely to hear. Jeff Lemire is definitely one of the big names in terms of comic writers these days. He's really done some amazing stuff and totally a writer worth reading his stuff, because he's written a lot of different types of stuff or a lot of different genres. He's got some of his more grounded, realistic stuff like Essex County, and it feels very personal. And then he's got, some of his big, high-concept superhero stuff. But even when he does that, I feel like he's more grounded than some writers. So there's a lot to like about Jeff Lemire. That's really cool. Thank you very much for the super chat. That's sincerely appreciated. Behind a day in Inktober, you can catch up, Flop Whopper. You can do it. Have I seen Gerardo Zaffino's work? He did the Cosmic Ghost Rider Destroys Marvel history covers. Some Conan interiors. No, I have to admit I haven't. With that name, he sounds like he's maybe Italian or at least somebody that they hired from Europe. I'll have to read up on it. Not too familiar. who's a creator out there where you'll read anything they do? It doesn't mean that you end up liking everything they do, but you trust them and you generally like what they do. Like, who's a creator that you like will follow on whatever, you know, that they get announced as working on? Because that's where I am these days. Like, I follow like creators more than anything else. 2 votes right away for Donny Cates, Sean Murphy, Brian Lee O'Malley, Michael Turner. Well, he's dead, but I can understand that. Nobody. Grant Morrison, Mark Wade, Mike Mignola, Larry Hama. I like that. Walter Simonson visited Klaus Jansen's class in SVA once. He totally defended Rob Liefeld and scolded us for smirking at him. I'd have to know where he's going there. Todd McFarlane, Greg Rucka, Neil Gaiman, Garth Ennis, Todd Knock, okay, John Byrne or more, Ed Brubaker, Neil Gaiman, Garth Ennis, Frank Miller. We're hearing a lot of the big names. This is interesting. I totally get it, folks. I totally get it. I don't have the cash to follow a creator like that. I don't mean that you have to buy everything, but you're at least interested in whatever they do, you know? Jason Aaron, Gaiman, Byrne, Peter David, yep. Brian Wood, Bendis, maybe, sure. Another Peter David. I'm just at the point where, like, you know, I don't like keep reading Spider-Man every month, but what or right now I'm reading, for as an example, Immortal Hulk, but I'm reading that very specifically because of Al Ewing, and to a degree also, like, you know, the artist. But it's made me like curious, and I will probably follow Al Ewing onto another project, whereas when somebody else takes over Hulk, like, I don't necessarily plan on staying with Hulk. I'm there for the creative team because I feel like that they're making an interesting story. That's all I mean. I follow like creators rather than characters. What else? Kieran Gillen, yep. Gabriel Piccolo, okay. Brian K. Vaughan, totally there. Kelly Sue DeConnick, sure. I read a little of Immortal Hulk after your episode. Well, I hope you enjoyed it. If not, like, you know, I know it's not for everybody, but I think Immortal Hulk's quite good right now. No, the Spawn movie didn't fall apart yet. It's still actively in development with McFarlane attached to direct. It hasn't fallen apart yet. It's just taken a long time. But you know what? That's typical of most movies. Gail Simone. Yeah, I'll do Gail Simone sometime. J.M. DeMatteis, underrated. I think that's true. Chris Claremont I saw. Al Ewing is redefining Hulk right now. I missed the thing about Moon Knight, sorry. They finished Atomicus, the Spider-Man life story comic that Bagley was illustrating, and it was written by Chip Zdarsky, I think. That's over. It was good. It was good. It shows Peter Parker aging, like, you know, to today, if he had still originated back in the 60s. So, like, it basically, each issue is a look at him across a decade, and what it does is, like, it does a take on his most famous story from that decade. So, like, you know, there's stuff with, like, Kraven the Hunter for the 80s, and Venom for the 90s, things like that. So, yeah. Is Immortal Hulk going to cover the Absolute Carnage crossover? It takes place in the same universe, but I'm not sure if there's a crossover or not. I kind of hope not, because I'm really enjoying the Immortal Hulk story for what it is, and I'd rather it just not get interrupted right now. That's the thing. Crossovers are fun, but I hate when they interrupt a comic that I'm really already enjoying. You know? I don't need it to get sidetracked like that. I don't read enough newer comics to know who's good other than when I see a video on something that my tastes skew older. Sure, I can understand that, Joe. I hope sometimes that's like, you know, what value my channel offers to some people is like, you know, if they're into, say, you know, soap opera or crime or just a particular creator, that they can go like, oh, I never heard about that run, or oh, that gives me a new way of looking at something that I've always enjoyed, something like that. Like that's my hope of what I can do with this comic. I just want to share my love for the medium of comics. I hear Chrissy upstairs in the kitchen, so I'm going to assume she's making a dinner, because that's a lot of walking around for... If she's not making a dinner, it doesn't make any sense. So I might luck out and get myself a dinner. I'm lucky. She cooks for us a lot, and don't always expect it, but she's a really good cook. So I'm always excited when she cooks for us. She does it a fair amount. I'm lucky. You've introduced me to a lot of great indie and foreign comics. Oh, that's so exciting to hear. I can't really read print comics right now economically, but I do follow a few web comics. Sure, I get that. Can I cook? I can cook. I don't cook a lot, but I can. Oh, I felt like I missed something. What novels do you read when you can? Cool question, Dean. What novels do I read? I would say, you know, for fun, I tend to like read something like, well, maybe like Stephen King. I tend to like a lot of his stuff. I also read a lot of nonfiction. And a lot of times, if I'm reading a book these days, it'll be because it will relate to a future episode. You know, I'll be reading a biography on, like, you know, a creator or a publisher or something like that. But I'm trying to think. Like, I've got a few books, and nothing's leaping out as, like, you know, a strong recommend right now. I came across a kind of fun series called Sandman Slim. I like that. At least I think that I'm remembering that title right, and it's about a guy who accidentally got sent to hell, and anything that like would normally like kill him down there could only work once, so he basically just kept getting stronger and stronger until he tricks his way out of hell. And the devil kind of likes him for that, so the devil like cuts him a lot of slack, and now he like lives his life on Earth as like a paranormal investigator of sorts. That was a pretty good series. What kind of pencil do I use? Primarily, I use this by Pentel. It's called a Graph Gear 1000. It's just a mechanical pencil, so nothing too fancy about that. I tend to like mechanical pencils as compared to, like, you know, just sharpening leads and stuff like that. I like working with fine lines, and this is just a 0.5 millimeters, what I use most commonly. What I like about this pen is it's pretty heavy, actually. It's weighted well, and it's got a nice grip here that's really like not it's not irritating or anything. It's very easy to hold, and then it's got some nice weight on the back, so it just feels very balanced, and it really feels like I'm in control. It doesn't feel like the pencil's ever gonna slide around or get away from me. So let's see. It looks like I've been going for about an hour and a half. That's amazing. Time kind of flew by. Let me do something sort of for myself here. I'm gonna sort of block out like an actual border on this guy, because otherwise I don't know how far I'm gonna draw this. If you don't have one of these like raised rulers, it's nice because then you can like draw along it, and it's not going to bleed across your page and smear. So it's kind of nice. Use some random markers I could at the nearest arts and crafts store. Good. Have I read or liked any young adult stuff? A little bit. I mean, I would say that Harry Potter is young adult, and I really like that. I also read those, what were they called? The Hunger Games books. I don't know if I read any others. Like, I read those because, you know, if something's selling that well, there's usually something to it. Like, you know, there's a reason why it's so popular. And I would say both were pretty good, especially the Harry Potter stuff. AEW Dynamite. I would love to check out AEW, but I don't have cable right now, so. But I did sign up for that Disney Plus, so that's less than a month away now. Hopefully that's something pretty entertaining. What is everybody's opinion on Frank Miller's Superman Year One? Did not read it. Favorite science fiction novels? Oh boy, I'm sure I have some, but I keep thinking of like fantasy right now. What would be my favorite science fiction novel? You know, when I was younger, what I kept reading was like Star Wars novels, and kind of like... while it was a lot of fun at the time, I probably could have been reading a lot of other stuff that I would have enjoyed more. Because you can only read so much at a time. Shadows of the Empire. Yeah, I read that when I was younger. Can you do a stream when you create art with kids art tools? Maybe like crayons and stuff like that, just like Crayola markers. Could try. I don't know how interested my audience would be. It would be fun. I definitely agree with that, but I'd have to think about that. It's a fun idea. What other fun ideas are being discussed in this so-called chat room? Harry Partridge! Oh my goodness. Now there's a guy who's been having some really good live art streams lately. Harry is working on an animation to help promote like a horror movie that he's going to make at some point. Does that werewolf has four eyes? No, he just sort of has just this one, and then the rest is all just sort of, you know, fur. Take another look at this in a second to see like where I should add some more shadows and bring some things together, but yeah. In the meantime, I'm just giving it a nice clean border so that it feels framed up and makes some sense. But yeah, if for any reason, and I'm sure you already all do, but if for some reason you're not following Harry Partridge, animator extraordinaire, how many people out there right now like make their own animation? Not that many, and of course that's because it takes a long time, and YouTube, among other places, don't make it easy to monetize. But Harry is one of the best, and yeah. And he really helped my channel, in my opinion. Like in some of its early days, he would start like sharing it on like links on social media, and I'm really grateful for that, Harry. It really meant a lot and still means a lot. I outsource all my animation to North Korea. Well, and maybe some of you know this from like a previous art stream, but a comic that I'd really recommend is one by Guy Delisle. It's nonfiction. It's really interesting, and it's called Pyongyang. And what it is Guy Delisle is, well, at least at that point in time, he was a supervising animator in Canada, and they outsourced some of their animation to Asia, like many animation companies do, because basically it's just your money can go a lot further there. Well, believe it or not, North Korea actually does have a small animation industry, like for, other countries. And they needed to send his company, this Canadian animation company, needed to send somebody to supervise. And so he lived in Pyongyang for like a year. And, Harry, you've actually read it. That's great. Obviously, several of you have. And, wow, since it's a country that obviously is very private and does not share, honestly, like what life is like there, it's fantastic and fascinating to see a Westerner's point of view of like what life is like how the electricity is completely unreliable, how people are obligated to go and worship their leader like regularly, and how they would pretend to fool him by like taking this Guy Delisle, like he would be taken on tours of like the area by like whenever you visit like North Korea, you always have a handler, somebody that's assigned to oversee your visit there, and they would like take him on tours to like a grocery store and like show him how full it was, but like then he'd like be looking out the cab window or something on his way back to the hotel, and they'd be passing other stores that were like very obviously not full of food, and he was like, do they really think they're fooling me? And I guess they do. Anyway, just a really interesting look at a very private country that you don't really get to see too much. So, yeah, I totally recommend Pyongyang as a really interesting non-fiction book. Non-fiction book. And I'm probably just about done with what I'm going to do here. I can't quite smell what Chrissy's cooking, but she's cooking something. I can smell what The Rock is cooking. It's a can of whoop-ass. And he's coming for me. So that's a bummer. Because as tough as I am, I don't think I can beat The Rock. He's got signature moves. Not fish sticks. No, not fish sticks. Sounds interesting. You beat me to it. Silver Bullet. Silver Bullet. That's sort of an underrated werewolf movie. Yeah. I was trying to think of like good werewolf movies here earlier. There's not many. There's not many good ones. There's plenty of bad ones. Not many good ones. I like Dog Soldiers the most. This one. Dog Soldiers is my personal favorite werewolf movie. Silver Bullet and American Werewolf in London. Any good werewolf movies made in the past 10 years? Well, that's a good point, because this probably is older than 10 years now. Ginger Snaps is probably older than 10 years. What have they made for a werewolf movie within the last 10 years? Yeah, that's a tough question. There was a show on like Netflix, I want to say, about like gypsies that were werewolves. But that wasn't very good in my opinion. I can't even remember the name of it. That's how good it was. Chriso does not like the fish. This is a true. I do not like a seafood. I don't like things where I can tell what it is. I'll happily eat chicken and beef and pork because it's all processed and you can't tell what it is. But fish, you always see its eye looking at you. Whoa, there's a bigger pasta. There's a bigger pasta for me. Whoa! Hemlock Grove. Yeah, I didn't care for Hemlock Grove. Underworld? No, I did not care for those. How did you avoid seafood while in Japan? There's lots of stuff they have aside from seafood. They've got some like amazing noodle dishes. They've got plenty of everything, man. There's lots of vegetable options. There's lots of I can get Kobe beef there. There's lots of good stuff. Yeah. Teen Wolf TV show. That's true. You know what? For, werewolf stuff within the last 10 years, we might be limited to the Teen Wolf TV show. It's not so good. But that's about all we can get. And that's about all we got. Folks, I think I'm going to call this live stream because now I've got some delicious food to eat. Oh, that's good. Supposedly, Taika Waititi is going to make a werewolf spinoff of What We Do in the Shadows. Yeah, it's going to be called Werewolves. I hope they make that. Any good vampire movies in the last decade? Any good vampire movies in the last 10 years? What is it? Probably Chrissy killing the stream with being considerate. Yeah, I think she has, but, there's basically my drawing. I think that's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. It's not perfect, but there's some good stuff there. Let me put this to the side for a moment, my food. Bear with me. Hi, Chibi. And I've got my kneaded eraser here. And I think that it might look better if I clean it up just a little. Now the trick is I can't erase that one area where I used some whiteout because that would smudge. And that's why we have things like Photoshop these days. Like if I had to send this to a printer, that's something I'd want to clean up some more. There's definitely plenty of areas here that I wish I had done a little bit better, but overall, I'm fairly happy with how this came out tonight. I think I can live with this. Yeah. I feel like I've got a relatively consistent light source and everything. But, it was based on, like, one of my... a scene from a movie. So I sort of had, I had a frame of reference for this. But, yeah. I think I'll take off. I'm just going to add some weird sort of skin texture here. I want him to have sort of cracked, leathery texture to his skin. I think I'll even add some here. I'm going to change the direction of this feathering and add some cracked, leathery grossness. Because even if he's not furry all over, he should, like, be... He shouldn't look good and handsome anywhere. This guy's a monster. Folks, if you happen to bump into a werewolf, I don't care how nice he or she seems to be, don't trust him. A werewolf is a monster. You cannot trust a werewolf. It's as simple as that. Good job, brother. Thank you, sister. For ornament tomorrow. Oh, is that... Yeah, let's see. Before I take off, let's see what the prompt for tomorrow is. Somebody just said ornament, and I just want to double check. Where did I keep that? No. Just sort of looking up my favorited things. Okay, yeah, ornament. Ornament. Today was wild. Tomorrow's prompt is ornament. It's a decent idea. Doing something from Silent Night, Deadly Night. What are some other holidays that have ornaments or ornamentation? I gotta give that some thought. But this is really hood. Yeah, well, that's me. Straight from the hood. Straight from the streets. That's what they call me. Garbage Day! Which Silent Night, Deadly Night was that? Like something like number 4? Could draw Ralphie. I've sort of been trying to stick with horror movies, and so far I've been able to do it like every day this month. So I would like to stick with existing horror movies as long as I can. But we'll see. What time tomorrow night? Probably about this time. What time actually is it right now? No, I'll be doing it earlier because I just remembered. A friend of mine got us tickets to see that new Silent Bob and Jay movie. I can't even remember what it's called right now. Silent Bob Reboot? Jay and Silent Bob Reboot the Universe? Something like that. So tomorrow night I'm going to go see that. So I'll probably do this more in the earlier afternoon. But that's by West Coast time. Just means it'll be a little earlier for folks in on the East Coast and the Mid Coast. Sorry, Caraver. I'm probably gonna do it earlier tomorrow, and then we'll see what comes after that. Game of Werewolves. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's tomorrow. I'm gonna see whatever that Kevin Smith movie is. I hope it's good. It's been a while since he's made one that I've really enjoyed. I can't quite remember. Did not really care for Tusk or what was the other stuff. Oh, I couldn't even sit through that one about the clerks that fight the little mini Nazis. I don't even remember what that one was called. I did not care for that. But anyway, I appreciate everybody being here. It was a blast to answer your questions. Everybody was really friendly and kind tonight, and I'm grateful for that. I think I'm done here, so I'm gonna call it. Yoga hosers. Yeah, did not care for that. Have a good one, Chris. The drawing is great. Well, that means a lot to me, Harry. You're a much more talented artist than I, so that's nice. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you very much. Keep reading comics, all that good stuff. And until then, I've already said my catchphrase, so how about just bye?